What do you do when the people you love most are the ones who hurt you the most? How do you move forward when your own family ignores your struggles and dismisses your dreams? Olivia Mitchell, a brilliant surgeon, spent years seeking approval from a family that never truly saw her. But when faced with a life-altering surgery, she realized the painful truth. She had been invisible in her own family. With no one there to support her, Olivia had to learn how to heal herself and build the life she always deserved. This is her journey of betrayal, resilience, and finding strength in the places she least expected. Stay tuned, because this is a story that will inspire you to redefine what it means to truly heal. Olivia Mitchell, 26, stood alone in the sterile, quiet hospital room. The sharp pain in her back was becoming unbearable, yet her mind was filled with a different kind of ache. A deeper, more painful realization. She had just received the diagnosis that her spine was severely damaged, herniated discs in multiple places, threatening her career, her dream. It was a routine emergency surgery, but for Olivia, it was a life-altering event. She had been living with the symptoms for weeks, pushing through the pain with sheer willpower, determined not to let anything derail her surgical residency. But now, surgery was the only option. What cut deeper than the physical pain, however, was the crushing disappointment of realizing she couldn't count on the people she thought would be there for her family. Her mother, Catherine, and father, Martin, had made it clear that they wouldn't be there for her during this critical time. Instead, they were attending Lily's graduation ceremony event that was more important than her emergency surgery, more important than the years of hard work Olivia had put into getting to this point. When Olivia first called her mother, the news of her surgery had been met with the same dismissive attitude she had grown accustomed to. "I'm sorry, Olivia," her mother had said, "but Lily's graduation is once in a lifetime. You understand, don't you?" Olivia had been silent for a moment, her heart sinking. She had spent years trying to please her parents, excelling in school, dedicating her life to medicine, but nothing was ever enough. Her sister Lily, the golden child, had always been the one to receive all the attention. Olivia's achievements had been overlooked, ignored, as if they didn't matter. Her mother's voice broke through her thoughts. "We've already made plans for the weekend. You'll be fine on your own. Besides, your surgery is just a minor procedure, right?" "Minor?" Olivia had almost shouted at the phone. "It's not just a minor procedure. This is my career on the line." But instead, she swallowed her frustration and simply replied, "I understand." But she didn't understand. How could they be so cold, so dismissive of her pain, her life? She had always been the one to do everything on her own. Even as a child, when she won first place in the regional science fair, her parents were too busy attending Lily's dance recital to show up. When Olivia was inducted into the National Honor Society, her parents were absent once again, this time caught up in Lily's preparations for her first prom. On her 16th birthday, Olivia spent the day alone, blowing out candles on a cupcake that Daniel, her boyfriend, had thoughtfully brought her. It was always like this. Lily's life always took precedence over Olivia's. The phone call had ended with her mother offering her an impersonal, "Well, we'll check in after Lily's graduation." That was the moment it hit Olivia with full force. Her parents would never be there for her. They had never truly seen her. The pain of their neglect wasn't physical, but it was just as debilitating. The night before her surgery, Olivia sat in the hospital room, Jason holding her hand tightly. His comforting presence was the only thing that kept her grounded. As she lay there, the hospital sounds echoing in the background, she realized something crucial. For the first time, she understood her place in her family. It wasn't as a daughter or a sister. It wasn't even as someone worthy of support or recognition. She was nothing more than an afterthought, a person they could do without. When Olivia was finally wheeled into the operating room, the weight of her family's absence was suffocating. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to be overtaken by the darkness, not knowing what the outcome of the surgery would be, but knowing that one thing was certain: she could no longer wait for them to notice her. She would have to build a life without them, one where she could stand tall, not as the overlooked child, but as a woman who had learned to stand on her own. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, Olivia had always been the quiet, studious daughter. She remembered the days when she would bury herself in books, always the good girl, always seeking approval. But the spotlight in their family never shone on her. From the moment Lily was born, it seemed like Olivia had been relegated to the shadows. Lily was everything that Olivia wasn't: outgoing, charismatic, and effortlessly charming. She always seemed to do things right, with a natural ease that drew the attention of everyone around her. Olivia, on the other hand, had to work tirelessly for everything she achieved, and it often felt like nothing was ever enough. The comparison was constant, even when Olivia achieved her greatest accomplishments. One of the first painful moments Olivia could recall was when she won the regional science fair at age 10. She had poured hours into her project on heart valve functions, and when she received first place, her parents promised they would attend the ceremony. But at the last minute, Lily's dance recital had been rescheduled for the same afternoon. "We'll try to make it after her performance," her mother had said. But they never showed up. Olivia, clutching her first-place certificate, had looked out at the sea of unfamiliar faces, the weight of her loneliness more crushing than the excitement of her victory. Her parents didn't even try to make it right. They didn't apologize. Instead, they told her to be patient. Lily's needs always seemed to come first. Lily's life always seemed to matter more. This pattern continued throughout Olivia's life. When she was inducted into the National Honor Society during her junior year of high school, her parents were, of course, absent. Instead, they were busy helping Lily prepare for her freshman prom. "It's just a certificate," Olivia's father had said, as though her achievements could be brushed aside with a simple phrase. On Olivia's 16th birthday, when her classmates were being showered with gifts and attention, her parents forgot entirely. The date clashed with Lily's soccer tournament in Seattle. Olivia spent the evening alone, blowing out a single candle on a cupcake Daniel's mother had thoughtfully brought over. Despite her perfect grades, her self-discipline, and her dedication to her studies, Olivia never seemed to matter. Her parents never once recognized the magnitude of her sacrifices. Lily's social calendar, her extracurricular activities, always took precedence. Olivia had learned to hide her disappointment, to bury the pain in the same way she buried her loneliness. She had accepted that she was never going to be the star of the family, but deep down, the feeling of being invisible hurt more than she ever let on. She had always wanted her parents to be proud of her, to see her the way she saw herself: a determined, ambitious young woman, striving to become a doctor. But no matter how many hours she spent studying, how many volunteer positions she held, how many scholarships she earned, their attention always returned to Lily's ever-shifting world of cheerleading, prom dates, and spring break trips. The most painful moment came when Olivia earned a full scholarship to Oregon State University for pre-med. Her parents' response was lukewarm at best. "That's nice, honey," her mother had said, before immediately turning the conversation to Lily's upcoming volleyball tournament. At dinner that night, Olivia's accomplishment was hardly acknowledged. The conversation quickly shifted back to Lily and her parents' excitement for her upcoming events. Once again, Olivia's triumphs had been overshadowed by Lily's social life. Olivia had always been the responsible one. She worked part-time jobs to support herself through college, taking on waitressing shifts and volunteering at the medical center to gain experience. She never asked for help, never demanded attention. She kept pushing forward, focusing on her dream of becoming a doctor. But the constant feeling of being ignored, of being second-rate, weighed heavily on her. She had a breakthrough moment during her junior year when she met Jason, a fellow medical student. He saw her for who she truly was, the hardworking, intelligent, and capable woman that her family had never truly acknowledged. He believed in her when no one else did. And for the first time, Olivia felt seen, truly seen. Jason's unwavering belief in her abilities became the most important thing in her life. It was a love that didn't come with conditions, a love that didn't measure her worth against the achievements of someone else. But even with Jason's support, the emotional wounds of Olivia's past never fully healed. She buried herself in her studies, pushing away her feelings of inadequacy. It wasn't until the physical pain of her back condition became unbearable that she realized how deeply her family's neglect had affected her. The pain in her back was not just physical, it was emotional, a manifestation of years of being sidelined. The numbness in her legs was a reminder of the numbness she had felt in her heart for so long. And now, as she faced surgery alone, with no one from her family by her side, the weight of it all crashed down on her. For the first time, Olivia allowed herself to feel the full force of the sadness, the anger, and the deep, aching loneliness that had been building for years. She had always put her family's needs first, but it was clear now that they had never done the same for her. She was invisible to them, and no matter how hard she tried, she would never be able to change that. The morning of Olivia's surgery arrived, and as she lay in the pre-op room, the reality of the situation hit her harder than any of the physical pain she was about to endure. Her parents hadn't called to wish her luck. Lily hadn't even sent a text. Olivia was about to undergo a major procedure that could potentially end her career before it even started, and yet her family couldn't be bothered to show up. Jason was there, of course, his steady presence a comfort to her in the midst of the storm. But it was hard to ignore the bitter reality. Her family, her own flesh and blood, had chosen to prioritize Lily's graduation over her life, altering surgery. The injustice of it all burned deep inside her, a fire that refused to be extinguished. Her phone remained silent, the absence of communication from her parents a glaring reminder of the emotional abandonment she had felt her entire life. It wasn't the first time she had been pushed aside, but it was the most significant. This was supposed to be a pivotal moment for her, a critical point in her career, where she needed her family's support more than ever. And yet, they had let her down, just as they always had. Her mind raced back to her childhood, to every moment when she had been overlooked in favor of Lily. Every science fair she had won, every academic achievement she had celebrated alone, while Lily had been showered with attention for her cheerleading, her prom dates, and her volleyball tournaments. The memories flooded her mind in a relentless wave. Her parents had never acknowledged her hard work or her success. They had never recognized her sacrifices, her dedication, her passion. To them, she was always second place to Lily, no matter how hard she tried to prove herself. The phone calls she had with her mother before the surgery echoed in her ears. The dismissive tone, the lack of empathy, the way her mother had reduced Olivia's major surgery to a mere inconvenience in the face of Lily's once-in-a-lifetime event. Olivia had tried to explain the severity of her situation, but it was as if her words fell on deaf ears. Her mother's response had been cold, almost rehearsed. "You'll be fine. It's just a routine procedure. Lily's graduation is more important right now." How many times had she heard that before? How many times had her needs been dismissed as less important than Lily's? It wasn't just this surgery. It was the years of neglect, the years of being made to feel invisible in her own family. Olivia wasn't just angry about the surgery. She was angry about the entire history of her relationship with her parents, about the way they had treated her as though she were an afterthought, a secondary character in a story that was always about Lily. Her father's voice came back to her, that same dismissive tone that had been a constant throughout her life. "It's just a certificate," he had said when she won the science fair. "Your sister only gets one first prom." "It's just a cupcake," he had said on her 16th birthday when Olivia had celebrated alone. It was always just something else that took precedence, always something more important than Olivia, always something that made her feel small, insignificant. The anger inside her was palpable now, bubbling to the surface like molten lava ready to erupt. She was sick of being the quiet, studious one. She was sick of living in the shadow of Lily, of being compared to her, of always being the second choice. But more than anything, she was sick of pretending that it didn't hurt. She was sick of pretending that she didn't care when her parents chose to attend every one of Lily's events, but never showed up for hers. Olivia's hands clenched into fists as she lay there in that sterile hospital room, the sterile light above her flickering. Her heart was pounding, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts of betrayal and abandonment. She had always been the one to push through the pain, to power through the loneliness, but now she realized something important. She didn't have to do this alone. She didn't have to keep pretending that everything was fine, that she was okay with being invisible to the people who should have cared for her the most. She didn't need their approval anymore. She didn't need their love, their attention, their validation. She had spent her entire life seeking their approval, but in this moment, she understood that it wasn't worth it. No amount of praise, no amount of acknowledgement from them could ever make up for the years of neglect. She had always been enough, had always been capable, driven, and talented, but now she realized that she didn't need her parents to recognize that. She could do it on her own. As the nurse came to prep her for surgery, Olivia closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. The anger still simmered inside her, but it was different now. It wasn't a weakness. It was fuel. Fuel for the fire that would drive her forward. She wasn't going to wait for anyone's approval anymore. She wasn't going to beg for attention or validation. She was going to make her own way. She was going to be someone, no matter what her family thought of her. The anger she felt was no longer just resentment. It was empowerment. And in that moment, she vowed to prove to herself to them that she didn't need their support to succeed. She was going to rise above their neglect, and she would do it on her own terms. The first few days after Olivia's surgery were a blur. The anesthesia had worn off, but the pain never fully left. Every movement was excruciating, each step a reminder of the fragility of her body, and the emotional wounds were no less sharp. She couldn't walk without assistance, couldn't sit up without feeling as though her back might snap in two. The world outside her hospital room continued, but she felt frozen in time, isolated, abandoned. Daniel had stayed with her as much as possible, but he had to return to work eventually. Her parents, who had promised to be there for her, never came. They had visited her once, but it had been brief, almost perfunctory. No phone calls, no messages of encouragement. Olivia wasn't surprised, but that didn't make the sting any less sharp. The silence from her family was deafening, and it hurt in a way she couldn't describe. The realization that they had chosen not to be there for her, yet again, hit her harder than the physical pain. Jason, her boyfriend, tried his best to comfort her. He stayed by her side, made sure she had everything she needed, but he was still just her boyfriend. He wasn't family. He hadn't grown up with her. He didn't have the years of history with her parents, the shared memories of family holidays or birthdays. He was, in a way, an outsider in her world, and yet, he was the only one who truly understood her pain. The loneliness was suffocating. Olivia lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering why she hadn't been good enough for her parents to show up. Why hadn't they cared enough to put her first? Was it because she had always been the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who didn't demand attention? Was it because Lily was always the star of the show, the one who made everything look effortless while Olivia had to struggle for every inch of recognition? She had spent so much of her life trying to be someone her family could be proud of, trying to earn their love and approval. She had worked so hard to be successful, to be the daughter they could look at with admiration. But nothing was ever enough. It was like she was invisible to them. They saw her accomplishments as expected, not remarkable. They never seemed to understand the sacrifices she had made, the nights she had stayed up late studying, the jobs she had worked to make ends meet, the pain she had suffered in silence. She remembered the day she had been accepted into Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, the excitement she had felt when she saw the letter, knowing that all her hard work had paid off. She had called her parents immediately, eager to share the news, to hear them say they were proud of her. But when her mother picked up the phone, her first response was not one of excitement or pride. "That's on the East Coast, isn't it?" she had asked. "You'll be so far away." That was it. No congratulations, no recognition of how hard she had worked to get there, just concern about the distance. And that same week, Lily had received a celebratory dinner for securing a local internship. Her parents had taken the whole family out to a fancy restaurant to celebrate, and Olivia's medical school acceptance wasn't even mentioned once. It wasn't just that they didn't care about her achievements, it was that they actively chose to ignore them. It was as if her accomplishments didn't matter as much as Lily's. Olivia had spent years trying to prove herself, but the more she succeeded, the more it seemed like she was only reinforcing her role as the background character in the family drama. The isolation Olivia felt in that hospital bed wasn't just physical, it was the crushing weight of knowing she had no one to turn to in her time of need. She was fighting not only for her physical recovery, but also for her emotional survival. It was as though she had been living a lie, trying to meet expectations that no one would ever truly recognize. And now, faced with the consequences of years of neglect, Olivia realized she had been waiting for something that would never come. Validation from her family. The anger she had felt in the previous days was now replaced with a deep, soul-crushing sadness. She had poured so much of herself into trying to make her family proud, but now, in her moment of need, she was once again reminded that they would never truly see her. They would never truly understand her. And for the first time in her life, Olivia felt completely alone, cut off from the very people who were supposed to support her the most. Her phone remained silent. No texts, no calls. Not even from Lily, who had moved on to the next milestone in her life, oblivious to what Olivia was going through. Olivia thought back to the phone call she had received the day before her surgery, when her mother had called to check in but seemed more concerned about how Lily was doing than about Olivia's life-threatening surgery. Even now, after all the years of sacrifice, Olivia had never truly mattered to her parents. The weight of the realization was unbearable, and as Olivia lay there in the hospital bed, tears slipping silently down her face, she knew that the road ahead would be long. Her physical recovery was only the beginning. She had to come to terms with something far more difficult, the fact that her family, the people she had always loved and sought approval from, would never be the family she had hoped for. Olivia's physical recovery was excruciating. Each small step forward felt like a triumph. But it wasn't just her back that was healing, it was her heart. The days following her surgery, when the pain was at its worst, and the loneliness had settled in like a permanent fog, she made a decision. She wasn't going to let this be the story of her life. She wasn't going to let this betrayal define who she was or where she was going. She would not rely on her family anymore. Not for approval, not for love. They had shown her time and time again that they would not be there when she needed them most. It was time to stop waiting for something that would never come. Time to stop wishing they would suddenly see her for who she was, not just the quiet, studious daughter, but a woman who had fought tooth and nail to get where she was. The breakthrough came when Olivia, still in pain, began to embrace the support of the people who truly cared about her, people like Jason and her colleagues at the hospital, who had become her new family. Dr. Eleanor, a seasoned neurosurgeon who had mentored Olivia throughout her medical career, became a pivotal figure in her life. She was the mother figure Olivia had always craved. the one who believed in her abilities without comparison. Dr. Eleanor didn't see Olivia as second place to anyone, she saw her as extraordinary. In those early days after the surgery, Dr. Eleanor made sure Olivia stayed focused, not just on her recovery, but on her future. She took Olivia under her wing, offering guidance and wisdom, not only about medicine, but about the importance of self-compassion. "You've got this, Olivia," Dr. Eleanor had told her one day, her voice firm with conviction. "You've been through something no one should ever have to face, and you're coming out of it stronger than ever." Jason, too, was a constant source of support. He stayed by her side, never faltering. When Olivia felt like giving up, when the weight of everything threatened to crush her, it was his steady presence that anchored her. "You're going to be amazing," he told her during one particularly tough night, as he adjusted her pillows and helped her take her medication. "I've seen what you're capable of, and this is just another hurdle. You're going to jump it, just like you've jumped every other one." The small victories began to add up. Each day, she could move a little more freely, take a few more steps, sit up for a little longer. But more importantly, she began to reclaim her sense of self-worth. She wasn't just a product of her family's neglect. She wasn't just the silent, overlooked daughter. She was Olivia Mitchell, a brilliant, compassionate, and determined surgeon. A woman who had overcome unimaginable odds to be where she was. Olivia's therapy sessions also played a crucial role in her healing. She began working with Dr. Sarah Coleman, a psychologist who specialized in family trauma. For the first time, Olivia started to unravel the deep-seated feelings of neglect and abandonment that had been buried for years. "Your family's behavior has nothing to do with your worth, Doctor," Coleman had told her during one of their sessions. "Their inability to see you for who you truly are is their failing, not yours." Olivia's healing was not linear. There were days when the pain felt overwhelming, when the emotional scars reopened, but each day she got stronger. She slowly built a life around the people who valued her, around the career she was so passionate about. Her focus on her work became her anchor. She threw herself into her residency with renewed vigor, pouring all her energy into becoming the surgeon she had always dreamed of being. As her physical strength returned, so did her sense of hope. She realized that while her family had never been the support system she needed, she had the power to create a new one. The people who truly mattered were the ones who showed up when it counted. They didn't have to be related to her by blood. They were the ones who saw her, who valued her, who supported her through thick and thin. Jason, Dr. Eleanor, her fellow residents, they were the family she had built. By the time Olivia was well enough to return to work, she was a changed person. Her back was healing, her spirit was healing, and most importantly, she was learning to heal the wounds of the past. The woman who had once been afraid to stand up for herself, who had constantly sought validation from people who never gave it to her, was now a confident, compassionate, and skilled surgeon. When Olivia walked into the operating room again for the first time after her recovery, it wasn't just her body that was ready, it was her heart too. She had rediscovered the fire within herself, the strength she had always had but had been too afraid to acknowledge. She had found a new sense of purpose, not just as a doctor, but as a woman who no longer defined her worth by anyone else's standards. She was enough. She had always been enough. And with that realization, she knew her journey was far from over. The scars on her back, and the ones on her heart, would always be there, reminders of the battles she had fought and won. But now, they were marks of resilience, not weakness. Olivia was ready for whatever came next, and she would face it with the same strength and determination that had carried her through the darkest days of her life. By the time Olivia had completed her surgical residency, she was no longer the timid, overlooked daughter of a family who had constantly failed to recognize her achievements. She had become a leader in her field, a surgeon with not only exceptional skills, but a depth of empathy that made her stand out among her peers. She had earned everything she had through sheer determination and resilience. And with each surgery, each success, she built herself up even more, piece by piece. Her rise within the medical community was rapid, but Olivia was never one to let her success go to her head. She had learned the value of humility, the importance of staying grounded. Dr. Eleanor, her mentor, had been pivotal in guiding her through this transformation. It was Eleanor who had taught her that the true measure of a doctor wasn't just in their technical skill, but in their ability to empathize with their patients, to understand their fears and their pain. "Your hands can heal, Olivia," Dr. Eleanor had told her, "but your heart will make you the best at what you do." Olivia had taken those words to heart. And as her career took off, she realized that the same skills that had helped her heal from her spinal surgery could now be used to help her patients heal physically and emotionally. She saw her patients as more than just cases to be fixed. They were people who needed care, compassion, and understanding, just as she had when she was at her lowest point. It wasn't long before Olivia was offered a prestigious position at a leading hospital in Boston, but she turned it down. The city had its appeal, but Olivia had built something in Baltimore that was too important to leave behind. The hospital, the residents she mentored, the colleagues who had become close friends, all of it had become her new family. This was her home, the place where she had found not only her career but her true self. As chief of surgery, Olivia's vision for patient care was changing the hospital. She implemented innovative new protocols for spinal recovery, pushing for the integration of cutting-edge technology that would allow patients to recover faster and more efficiently. Her contributions were invaluable, and her reputation as an innovator in spinal surgeries began to spread across the country. One day, after a particularly challenging surgery, Olivia received a text from Daniel, now her fiancé. "Proud of you, as always," it read, simple yet full of meaning. As she sat in her office, reflecting on the life she had built, Olivia allowed herself a moment of gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like the neglected daughter or the invisible sister. She felt like herself, strong, capable, and completely at peace with who she had become. The moment came when Olivia realized that she no longer cared about her family's approval. She didn't need their validation to feel proud of herself. She had already accomplished everything she set out to do, and she had done it on her own terms. The deep, painful wounds left by her family's neglect had healed, replaced by something much stronger in inner strength that would carry her through whatever challenges lay ahead. Her parents and Lily, once the source of her pain, had become distant figures in her life. She had learned to create her own boundaries, to protect herself from the people who had always treated her as less than. Though there were occasional attempts to reconnect, Olivia no longer felt the need to seek their approval. She had become her own person, someone who didn't need anyone's permission to succeed. One evening, after a particularly difficult surgery, Olivia received a call from her mother. "How are you, honey?" her mother asked in a voice that seemed to hold a bit of curiosity. It was a small gesture, but Olivia noticed it. "I'm good," Olivia replied calmly, her voice even. "I'm really busy with work, but things are going well." Her mother hesitated before responding. "We saw the article about your work. Your father and I are proud of you." Olivia felt a pang, but it wasn't the same kind of hurt it used to be. It was different, no more of a quiet acknowledgement than anything else. She had built her success in spite of them, not because of them, and that was enough for her. "Thanks," Olivia said. "I'm proud of what I've accomplished too." That was all she needed to say. The conversation drifted into casual topics, nothing of great significance, but for Olivia it marked a quiet shift. She didn't need her parents to validate her anymore. She had already done that for herself. As she hung up the phone, Olivia reflected on how far she had come. She had built a life that was her own, one that was full of meaning and purpose. She had surrounded herself with people who saw her for who she truly was, not as a reflection of her sister, but as the woman who had carved her own path. The satisfaction of knowing she had risen from the ashes of her family's neglect, the satisfaction of being the person she had always needed to be, filled her with a deep sense of peace. She had found her place in the world, and it wasn't in the shadow of anyone else. It was all her own. Months passed, and the emotional distance Olivia had created from her family began to feel like a necessary space for healing. She had learned to live without the constant need for approval, without the expectations and disappointment that had shaped her entire life. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't sad either. She was simply at peace with her decisions, with the life she had built on her own terms. One evening, as Olivia sat at her desk in the quiet of her office at the hospital, she reflected on her journey. She thought about the lonely nights in the hospital, the pain that had felt insurmountable, and the emotional scars that had taken so long to heal. But most of all, she thought about how far she had come. She had survived. She had thrived, and she had done it alone, not because she had to, but because she had chosen to. Olivia had learned that healing wasn't just about physical recovery. It was about letting go of the past and accepting that some things would never change. Her family would never be what she had wanted them to be, and that was okay. She had found something even more valuable, the ability to heal herself, to build a life based on her own dreams, not the ones her family had imposed upon her. In a rare moment of reflection, Olivia picked up her phone and saw a message from Lily. "Hey, I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. I never really understood what you went through. I've been blind to it, and I want to do better." Olivia paused, her thumb hovering over the screen. It was the first time Lily had acknowledged the pain she had caused. The apology, simple as it was, didn't erase the years of neglect, but it felt like a step in the right direction. Olivia took a deep breath and typed back. "I appreciate that, Lily. It means a lot to me. It wasn't the end of her journey. It wasn't the perfect resolution, but it was enough." As Olivia looked out the window at the sunset, she realized that her journey was not just about overcoming the past, it was about redefining what family meant to her. She had created her own support system, one that valued her for who she was, not who they wanted her to be, and that was enough. In the end, Olivia understood that healing, like surgery, was a long, often painful process, but one that led to something stronger, something more authentic. The scars of the past would always be there, but they were no longer a source of pain. They were a testament to her strength, to the woman she had become. And as Olivia prepared for another day of surgeries, she felt ready for whatever came next. Because now she had everything she needed, herself,